Hello, welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. And another interesting slate tonight. I feel like we say that a lot, but no slam dunk pitchers because we had a ton of aces over the weekend, as it's been for a few weeks. So maybe once we get a few more weeks in, these guys will move off the weekend. Maybe one time we'll see a slam dunk lock pick on a Monday, but it seems like that just doesn't exist right now. But closest you have to it on FanDuel tonight is going to be Lance Lynn, $9,500 against the Reds. The Reds are not a team that strikes out a ton. I believe an 18.7% strikeout rate against righties. But Lynn has been efficient. He's also a big-time favorite in Vegas, minus 200 favorite in this game, 7.5 run total. Lynn's been pretty consistent over the course of the season. You look at his last 8 games, all but 2 of them in double digits, 2 19-point games, a couple of 16-plus. So, this is a guy that, among the pitchers on tonight's slate, he's certainly the best one. 26.1% strikeout rate, 0.58 home runs per 9. You don't love his ground ball rate, which is not great, but considering the other options tonight, he's probably the safest one. He might not get 8 or 9 Ks, but he should give you a quality start.
It's really interesting that usually when we talk about the top option and a clear-cut top option, we're talking about a Kershaw or a Scherzer or like an elite-level pitcher. That's not the case with Lynn today, but he is the clear-cut top option. His strikeout rate is almost 4% above the next highest strikeout rate on the slate. Jorge De La Rosa checks in at 22.6%. Lynn's over 26%. Nobody else is even striking out over 23% of the batters they face. So by far the highest strikeout rate, by far the biggest betting favorite tonight. And he's at home where we know he pitches much better than on the road. And he checks in at under 5 figures. So really a pretty easy guy for me to slot in cash games. There are strong alternatives, but he's just going to be so high owned tonight. And for good reason, because there isn't an 11-run total at Coors Field today. We don't have any huge bats that you have to pay up for. And even the big bats that you do have to pay up for, you can still get with Lynn because he does cost less than $10,000. I think he's going to be fairly popular in GPPs as well because he is affordable. But in GPPs, I like spinning off to Anibal Sanchez. $8,700. The Rays are a bad offense against right-handed pitching. Sanchez is basically epitomizes what it means to be a boom or bust pitcher. Has numerous starts this year where he's allowed 5 runs or more, but also has struck out 6 batters or more in more than half of his starts this year. So when he's going good and he can avoid the long ball, we're talking about a guy that can give you more than a strikeout per inning and pitch 7 innings into a game. He does that and he gets a win. All of a sudden you're looking at a total that can rival or exceed that of Lynn, and he's coming in a little bit cheaper at $800 less than Lynn. But because they are priced so close, I expect Sanchez's ownership to be super low in GPPs tonight. Other names that I'm looking at for cash games or GPP usage, mostly consider them GPP usage because I'm going to be on Lynn pretty much entirely, and I think almost the entire field is, but Chris Heston and Kyle Hendricks are both big betting favorites tonight. Both are kind of in that mix for second biggest betting favorite of the night. Heston's at home where he's pitched better as a rookie this year. Hendricks is at home and he's facing a Rockies lineup that is much better at home than on the road. Well, tough luck, guys in purple. You are at the friendly confines of Wrigley Field tonight. And guy that I like is Robbie Ray at 6,900 in GPPs. He is a road underdog. Don't expect him to continue to strike out as many batters as he has. Swinging strike rate just doesn't indicate that he's going to continue to miss bats at that rate, or strike out batters at his current rate. But he doesn't walk many batters, and he's facing a Mariners lineup that's really bad against left-handed pitching. At $6,900, you can pretty much do whatever you want to with your bats. And then if you get 10 to 12 points, 10 to 14 points from Robbie Ray, he's really not going to be that far behind the top arms, I don't think, tonight. We're not looking at any slam dunk or any guys that really should be flirting with 20 points tonight. So if you can get yourself around a dozen points from Robbie Ray and spin that savings into your bats, I like that as a GPP option.
Yeah, and like you said, you're not expecting any of these cheap guys to do a whole lot because not very many of them in good spots. You got guys like John Danks, who's had his random 3 really good games in his last 4, but this guy's still not a good pitcher. Do not be fooled, especially at Boston after they exploded last night. That's a team you want to be targeting with bats tonight, and
yep.
I'll live or die targeting him again tonight. I will not go down with the ship with John Danks as my starting pitcher on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of these Cy Danks performances, but I'm not the type to look at John Dank's numbers and say, well, he spun a gem against me last time I used hitters against him. Better not use him. No, his numbers over the last 3 years indicate that if you keep trotting out these bats against John Danks, it's going to be a profitable decision here more often than not.
Yeah, and I will throw out one more guy that I think is an interesting option. He's a very volatile option, though, but coming off one of his better starts of the season. Edison Volquez against the Indians. The Indians have been really, really bad recently. We watched that they scored 5 runs the entire series against the White Sox. And obviously Chris Sale is one of the pitchers there, but Carlos Rodon had his best start of his career. I mean, this is a team that just looks lost. I mean, I was watching that game, and there's not a lot of good, consistent hitters anyway. Obviously, they're much worse against lefties than they are against righties because there's a lot of lefties in that lineup. But at the same time, Edison Volquez has actually been very good against lefties this year, 270 WOBA allowed. So, I think he's an interesting option that really nobody's going to look at because if you look at his game logs, they're fairly unimpressive outside of his last start. But against a team that's really struggling to plate, I think he's got some upside tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, not a bad GPP swerve for the same reasons as Sanchez. When he's on, he's very good, and he's priced close enough to Lynn that you'd expect super low ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to catcher here. We both want Buster Posey. I think everyone wants Buster Posey tonight against, I'm not really allowed to say most of the words I would typically use to describe Kyle Loesch, but he is just god-awful at the plate. 375 WOBA allowed to right-handed batters this season, 13 home runs. I mean, this is a very, very bad pitcher who is in line to get crushed by a team that's very good against right-handed pitching. So Buster Posey, I think easily your top option at catcher. And then if I'm not going with Posey, if I can't afford him, I'm going to be saving money. I think you're of the same thinking as well. And Matt Wieters at $2,300. He is listed as day-to-day, so make sure he's in the lineup. But Buck Showalter did say he should be back at catcher today, near minimum salary at Baltimore tonight in a fine matchup against Alex Wood, who's an average pitcher, but definitely not a guy you're shying away from tonight.
Yeah, and the thing with Wood, he has relatively similar FIP and xFIP numbers in his career at home and on the road, but one thing he doesn't do on the road is miss bats. His strikeout rate drops substantially, and if you're allowing contact to a guy like Matt Wieters, who hits for power, a guy with a ISO north of 200 against left-handed pitchers over the last 2.5 years, you're asking for trouble at Camden Yards. So I do like Wieters at 2,300. Should have a good lineup spot. I do think that the middle of that Orioles lineup can put some runs on the board. They did bat Machado and Jones 3-4 in that lineup. If they go a Machado, Jones, Wieters 3-4-5. That's a pretty formidable threesome right there to attack Alex Wood with. So I do like Wieters. I'm with you. Posey the top option, but Wieters probably price considered. Going to be rostered a little bit more by me because there are some bats in other positions that I like. But one other name I'll throw out there, just $1,000 less than Buster Posey. So a guy that I expect that if people are going to pay up a catcher, they're not going to pay up for him. They're going to pay up for Posey. That's Victor Martinez at 3,300. Really has his legs back under him, figuratively and literally, now that he's healthy and his wheels are right. He's been great over the last month or so, and you can basically tell. Just look at his month by month splits, and he wasn't right early in the year, and now he is, and he's raking. So Nate Karns, not exactly a super exploitable pitcher. He's been very good, but Victor Martinez is an all-world hitter when he is going right, and it looks like he is going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really the only guys I'm looking at here. And then
Yep.
At first base, like we mentioned, no 10,000 plus price pitcher today, so it's easy to get some big bats, especially one whose price has been slowly creeping down. Paul Goldschmidt, you don't like the park factors, but one of the best, if not the best hitter in all of baseball against left-handed pitching, depending on who you ask. $4,700. This guy gets hits, he gets on base, he's got power. Actually hasn't had a homer in his last 10 games, but the guy still hits a ton of doubles, and this is a spot against Mike Montgomery, who was very good over a few starts, but has struggled pretty bad over his last couple starts. Paul Goldschmidt, really easy to fit into your lineup tonight, regardless of who you play at starting pitcher.
Yeah, I'm gonna be using Lynn and Goldschmidt on all of my cash games rosters. I see zero reason to spin off of Goldschmidt. There are other obviously talented options at first base, but at under $5,000, this is about as good as it gets for rostering Goldschmidt against a left-handed pitcher. So I love Goldie tonight. I'll use him in some GPPs as well, but in GPPs, there are some other names to consider. You got both Fielder and Teixeira in a game with a big betting total against subpar pitchers at at Texas, so good ballpark factors for runs scored. Also looking at Jose Abreu's not bad against Joe Kelly. Kelly just not a very good pitcher at all. But a name that I kind of like a little bit in that game is a guy that has come out of the break white hot. Mike Napoli's actually hitting, and as we already alluded to, we're picking on John Danks where we can. And if you're not using Goldschmidt, you need to be chasing somebody that's got some power. And I'll take Mike Napoli against John Danks at home. So Napoli at $2,400, I think makes for an intriguing, low-owned, very cheap first base alternative to Goldschmidt if you want to spend crazy everywhere else on the diamond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw out two more guys here.
Yep.
One guy, Joey Votto, going to be a contrarian play against Lance Lynn. As we know, Lance Lynn, we already talked about him as a top pitcher. That doesn't mean that you can't target against him in GPPs. I mean, Votto has been on base multiple times in all of his last 9 games now. So Votto really showing what he could do. He gets on base even when he doesn't get pitches to hit. And I'm not saying the Reds are going to put up big numbers, so obviously his RBI and run chances aren't quite so high. But 3,700, he's a nice pivot. And then Freddie Freeman, only been back for 2 games, only started 1 game. But he gets Kevin Gausman, who, in a very small sample size, has just gotten shredded by left-handed batters so far this season. So definitely Freddie Freeman, a guy that, maybe people don't even realize he's back from the DL yet. We've been picking on the Braves without him, but he's a very good hitter, and especially, like you mentioned, we were talking before the show, great park for left-handed power, so I like him a lot.
Yeah, Joey Votto and Joey Votto Light look pretty good tonight.
Yeah.
Freeman is basically a Joey Votto doppelganger, and I'm good with that. Get him against Gausman at Camden Yards, and there's definitely huge upside there. And the price doesn't reflect his skill level yet because he has been out. $3,700 is a really nice price point for Freddie Freeman. Anytime you can get him for under 4 in a ballpark like that, you're doing pretty good.
Absolutely. Second base options, our boy Rougned Odor at the top at 4,100. He's also one of the better plays on the day, if you ask us. He's going against Ivan Nova, who has just been awful since he came up, and all that Odor has been doing is destroying the baseball. 2 hits and a homer yesterday, 2 hits and a homer the day before. Skip it one day, and then 3 hits and a homer and a triple the day before that. I mean, this guy is just crushing the ball. He's got 4 games in his last 8 with at least 9 points on FanDuel. He's expensive, but if you can get him in there, he's in a good spot in the highest total of the night.
Over the last 30 days, Rougned Odor owns a ISO north of 300 and a 205 WRC plus. I mean, the guy is on another planet right now. He hits in the 2-hole for the Rangers, so he's in a great spot to benefit from that high total in Texas. And Nova's not the type of pitcher I'm shying away from. So Odor, definitely the top play at first base, priced accordingly. But still, I mean, I don't know. He doesn't have that household name just yet. Haven't seen the crazy ownership that I've expected with him in some of these games that I've been in. And I love Odor tonight, but understandable if you can't quite pay up for him. Jason Kipnis against Volquez looks pretty good at 3,700. And then I'm a fan of Joe Panik at 3,000 and Colton Wong at 2,900. Raisel Iglesias struggles with left-handed batters. So Colton Wong hitting leadoff as a lefty against him looks pretty good at $2,900.
Yeah, for me, if I can't get Odor, I think that Wong is the guy I'm going to pivot to there. And then I got one cheap guy for you, Jonathan Scope, $2,200 men's salary. The bag right around 6 a lot of times. And I mean, this is a guy with quite a bit of power for a guy that's probably, he may be batting in the bottom of the order. Look and see. But either way, men's salary, nice pop in his bat against Alex Wood, who you already mentioned. Does not miss a lot of bats on the road. So he's a guy you can definitely pick on tonight. And men's salary power is definitely a good way to go in the middle infield.
Yeah, and when you're looking at min salary power like that, I'm not as concerned about lineup spot because a home run counts from any spot in the lineup. He's not a contact centric hitter who's reliant on guys being on base to have value. So if he hits a solo shot from the 9 spot, counts all the same as a solo shot from the leadoff spot. So I don't mind targeting power all or nothing type of hitters if they hit down order. So Scope at $2,200 is a nice GPP pivot. I like it a lot.
All right. Next up, third base. We got some decent options here, of course. A lot of people are going to be on A-Rod. Happy 40th birthday to Alex Rodriguez, who I believe it was Elias Sports Bureau tweeted out that he has 5 home runs on his birthday, tied for the Major League lead. So if A-Rod wants to set a record, he's going to hit you a home run tonight. So there's your narrative for the day. But at $4,000, He did hit 3 home runs in his last game, so that was a pretty good game for him. So maybe he's got one more in the tank, but either way, more of a tournament option because there's some cheaper guys that we both think will be popular. We'll go ahead and go down to those guys. Chris Bryant at $3,100 against Jorge De La Rosa. Going to be a pretty popular play. De La Rosa actually been decent against righties this year, not so much throughout his career. So Bryant, a guy that probably will be the most popular third base option, I would imagine. But I know you and I both really like Matt Duffy, $3,200. Already talked about Kyle Loesch. He doesn't get any more airtime. He is bad, and Matt Duffy has been hitting the ball very well recently. So I like Matt Duffy quite a bit.
Yeah, good lineup spot for Duffy too. Good guy to hook with Buster Posey if you want to go that route. Maybe even mini stack with another guy that I know you're going to touch on here in a little bit in the outfield. But Duffy makes a lot of contact. Nice alternative to Bryant. Very different players, but with Duffy's high contact rate comes a little bit higher floor than Bryant. Bryant offers a higher ceiling with more power. Both are very viable plays at 32 and 3,100. Another name that you and I both are in agreement looks good, especially for salary relief. $2,600 Mike Moustakas against Cody Anderson. He is on the road, but $2,600 is a pretty good price point for a guy who's a number 2 hitter and really hit from opening day through now. He's been excellent. He's rewarded Ned Yost's craziness, slotting him second to start the year, even though he really hadn't earned that spot to this point in his career. Moose has rewarded that faith, and he's been very good. If you look at his game logs, he's putting up some nice numbers. He's got a 4-game hit streak going right now. He's got hits in 8 of his last 10 games, a couple multi-hit efforts in there, 3 home runs in that time span. So nothing wrong with Mike Moustakas, and at $2,600, definitely awards you some savings from the top options like Machado and A-Rod, and even offers you a little bit of salary relief from the guys that we're looking at 32 and 3,100 and Matt Duffy and Chris Bryant.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one more cheap guy here, Chase Headley, $2,500. Not sure where he's going to be batting, but this is a guy who's been putting the ball in play, he's been a solid cash game option at this cheap price for quite some time now. And we know this does have the biggest total on the day. Switch hitter Headley, not going to be pulled for a reliever or against a reliever later in the game. We know this is a terrible Texas bullpen too. So when you get a cheap guy from that game that's going to be in all 9 innings, you got to like that tonight.
Yep.
All right, shortstop. You've seen this many times where we say Troy Tulowitzki and then you move on. That is not the case today. But tonight it's Xander Bogaerts and then you move on. Once again, 9-run total here. He gets John Danks. Same old story you've heard 1,000 times. We won't bore you with the details, but he's only $2,700. Been batting third for the Red Sox tonight, or every night. And, I mean, they have one of the higher team totals on the board tonight against John Danks. And it's going to be really hard to come off him tonight because you've got guys ahead of him that are more expensive, like Alexi Ramirez, who has just been not a good hitter all season. Johnny Peralta in an okay spot. I think if I'm going to pay, he's going to be my cash game option. I think he's going to be most people's cash game option. But Brandon Crawford is my pivot if I'm going to come off him at $3,100, picking on Kyle Loesch. End of story.
Yeah, I mean, Bogaerts to me is a slam dunk, and honestly, I think he could very easily be the highest rostered player at any position tonight, save for maybe Lynn at pitcher. But as far as position players, he's got to be the consensus top play at shortstop, and there really isn't any money to be saved at $2,700. The maximum you could save spinning down to a min-salary player is $500. What are you doing if you're spinning down to $2,200? You are sacrificing so many good variables for what? $500? What are you gonna invest that in? Bogaerts seems like a no-brainer to me. And as you said, this is the Troy Tulowitzki style shortstop analysis. Put in Bogaerts and move on.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you want to chase Tulo on the road, $3,600, he's cheap, but Hendricks has been very good against right-handed batters this season, and we know the story with Coors Field bats not in Coors Field. It is not pretty. All right, outfield options. Luckily for you, since you're playing Lance Lynn, he's the most expensive player in your cash games. You don't have to pay up in the outfield because most of the best plays are $3 to $4K. So we'll get into it now. Adam Jones at $3,000. Just play him in your cash games. He's way too cheap at home against a lefty. He's also going to be out there with Bogaerts as one of the more popular plays on the night, easily. Other guys, I'll give you a couple guys I'm looking at. Hunter Pence at $3,400. Kyle Loesch next. Hanley Ramirez and Mookie Betts. You got to make a decision between these two guys, and it has nothing to do with price because they're both $3,400. So you want to take the floor with Betts, or do you want the ceiling with Hanley Ramirez? I think both guys are fine plays in cash and tournament options And then, of course, Nelson Cruz gets a lefty also. So there's that.
Yeah, Cruz is easily the my favorite pricey play, or I should say, he's the most expensive play that I'm willing to roster. $3,800 though. I mean, the most expensive outfielder usually that I'm looking at is like 45 on any given night, and tonight it's a sub $4,000 price point. So blue light special here on FanDuel for the outfielders that I'm looking at. 3,800 for him is fair. I'm with you. Love the Red Sox outfielders. Pence looks good. I'm Adam Jones. I like. The interesting thing is I expect a lot of people to be on Carlos Gonzalez chasing that ridiculous power streak. $3,000. There's nothing stealth about using him tonight. Basically, there's going to be people that might think that it's somewhat under the radar play to use him on the road, but with as many home runs as he's hit in his last 3 games, you're going to see people just chasing that. But Cargo, just not the same player outside of Coors Field. Not saying that he's a bad play at $3,000. I just think you can do better, namely Adam Jones. Some other names that I'm looking at in the outfield include Brandon Moss at 2,600. I like cheap power, and Moss certainly provides that. Really a GPP only play because you're looking to chase home runs and you're looking to maybe move off of some of the popular Red Sox outfield bats or some of the other more popular bats, but certainly in play in GPPs. And Mark Trumbo, another power hitter, hits for his most power against left-handed pitching. Has not been very good with the Mariners, but does get a lefty that doesn't miss a lot of bats, so that kind of plays right into his strengths. Bad pun intended on the power strength thing there, but Mark Trumbo, $2,300, just about the min salary. Not a bad play by my estimation.
No, not at all. I'm with you there. And then Chris Young, anytime he gets a lefty, he's in the lineup, $2,900. You got to like him. You mentioned Josh Hamilton before the show at 28. I like him as well. And then Dexter Fowler, $2,700 also.
Yeah, look at those price points, man. We're talking about hovering around $3,500 and less, and that's awesome to be able to get those guys in there with your top pitcher and feel pretty good about your lineup.
Yeah, there's about 8 outfielders I'd like to get in with tonight. So maybe spending a little bit extra time deciding on which outfielder you like, 'cause there's a lot of good priced options tonight. And with that, that's going to wrap things up for us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.